Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Noxcast, an Equinox news recap podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Charlotte King, the managing executive editor of the Equinox.
And I'm the other host, Nathan Hope, the news editor of the Equinox.
And today we're joined by our special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Tim Fitzpatrick. I'm the Opinions Editor at the Equinox.
Yep. Our trusted compatriot here. So to start off, we want to kind of run through a little explanation of who we are and what we do, because you know our editor positions, but not necessarily what that entails. So we are all students who work at the student newspaper, the Equinox, here on the Keene State campus. And for me, as managing executive editor, I basically oversee all of the content side of the Equinox. So everything that goes into our print paper, everything that goes online, on our various social accounts as well. So I oversee all of the writing, photography, graphics, video, whatever, and just giving notes, making sure that everything is up to scratch and how it should be. I also am currently continuing to maintain the arts and entertainment section of the paper. Previous to this position, I was the arts and entertainment editor of the paper, and as we currently don't have a full-time arts and entertainment editor, I'm kind of continuing that position a little bit. Nate?
Yeah, I'm the news editor, so I oversee within my section the copy that gets put in all the articles there. Managing staff, assisting them with sources and writing. I designed the first 2 pages of the page layout, which is, includes the front page of the newspaper. Pretty big responsibility there.
And I'm Tim. Over at Opinions, we're buried a little bit. We're the first page of the B side, but we focus on staff commentary and just opinions. What people are interested in, what people have a gripe about. At editorial, we during our Monday meetings, we as a group decide on a big story that we want to talk about, a big issue that we're concerned about, and that is my front page, I guess.
Yep, editorial is always top story, front and center for Tim's section.
I'm not a journalism major. I'm a double major in history and politics, and I initially started with one of Phil Barker's classes. He, on the second day of class, mentioned that our previous opinions editor, Nico, was looking for writers, and I came to the second meeting, and that's where it all started. I really enjoyed writing opinions. It gave me the opportunity to be topical, but also, voice my thoughts. You don't have that real constriction that you do with proper journalism, that lack of bias. So yeah, that's where it all went.
Yeah, and I think something that's important too, with opinions is having a good amount of staff and having some diversity in that section. We want a good amount of staff in every section, but with opinions specifically, when you're talking about issues that are more localized to the college and the state and region, and we want to get different perspectives. We don't want it to end up being one person's blog or something. So, I think it's been good this year. I think, would you agree that, having some more folks on board now?
Yeah, it's been good having a lot of writers. It doesn't feel like a personal yap session anymore. Yeah. And it's nice to have that diversity of opinion as well.
So we want to talk about some of our top stories from this week because, as some of you might know, we're recording on a Thursday, which means that we put out a paper today. And we're going to start with editorial, Tim's top story for this week, because we have him on as our special guest. And this week's editorial was about St. Anselm College and the move that they recently made to allow any qualifying New Hampshire resident student whose family makes less than $100K and maintains a GPA of above 3.25 to have a free ride to the college, which is a pretty big thing to roll out. We voiced our opinion as an e-board about this topic in the editorial, and kind of came to the conclusion that we think it's cool. We think it's cool what St. Anselm has done. We'd like to see more of it. Tim, do you want to talk about this topic at all?
Sure. We decided on editorial being St. Anselm, their tuition shift. You'll love to see it. I'm really glad that St. Anselm is moving that way. I wish the public university system would move more that way much quicker. It's certainly it's certainly hard these days, especially with the way the economy's going, and just college in general is getting more expensive, especially in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is dead last, 50 out of 50.
And I mean, we're definitely understanding of the position that public schools are in, as opposed to something like St. A's, where this is a private school where they have donors, they have an endowment, they have these funds that are private and accessible to them that they can use to make a big change like this, where public colleges don't necessarily have that. But I think definitely our push that we were recommending in the editorial was a move towards greater state funding for New Hampshire colleges, New Hampshire higher ed, to try and see the public sphere of higher ed in the state try to match the standard that St. Anselm is setting right now.
Oh, agreed. We definitely need public ed to move that way, and we need a whole government approach as well. The legislator just won't do it. There's pushes for empowering private schools and charter schools all throughout the levels, like elementary, secondary, and post-secondary. And that's all fine and well, but we're using these public funds to help these schools, which just isn't right. We need to empower the public to have these opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that was, brought up during our discussion, is sort of that it's disappointing that a private school would take a more progressive approach to this as compared to, public schools. And we know that, as public universities, they're not able to do this basically because of the state's, unwillingness in the past to provide the needed support for that. But even something like a couple of years ago or last year, when they gave a few million more in the budget towards Keene State and Plymouth State specifically, that was a big help in terms of tackling our budget deficit. But when you look at some of the challenges with enrollment and wanting people to stay in the state and go to the state and get jobs in the state, it's really has to be a top-down approach and look at if we can make going to college here a lot more appealing in terms of the cost and bringing in even people from out of state. I think personally, as someone who's from in-state, if I wasn't an in-state student, I don't know if I would be going here. I think I would probably have to just look at other options because it's just not really affordable otherwise, at least for my situation. So I think it's hard to see when you have private schools being able to take something like this, and then in our position not being able to. And something with editorial is after all, the Equinox is the student voice of Keene State College, so we want to amplify what we feel is the broader opinion of campus, and we have people from different walks of life in our e-board, and so we get different perspectives in there, but ultimately we often end up agreeing at least on a few key points with these issues, and we think that the the campus would definitely see sort of the affordability crisis when it comes to higher ed, specifically in the state.
All right, this is the part of the podcast where we can now shift and talk about the rest of the top stories that we had in the rest of our sections this week. And we can go ahead and start with news.
Yeah, so the top story this week for news was bike thefts having an uptick on campus. Campus Safety sent out an email to the campus community in compliance with the Clery Act, which notified students that there was an uptick, which was, I believe, 8 reports of bikes being stolen. And my staffer, Parker Bartlett, did a pretty good job with this one, getting the sources and some insightful quotes about what people can do to prevent this from happening. Particularly, concerning when we're talking about the Green Bikes program, which is a program that we have where, you can borrow a bike, which is owned by the college, for a short period of time, people stealing those. And basically, one of the major solutions is you got to put a lock on these things. But it's a good, it was a good story to get that information out there. And Keene State's, kind of a walkable campus, but also a lot of people who don't have cars, you might want to, use a bike to get places just a little bit further out of the purview of the main part of campus. So, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I do definitely think that as a campus, I see a lot of people on bikes or scooters or skateboards or whatever. So I do think that there are a lot of people who are, aware and are trying to get from point A to point B quickly, but also there is this element of sustainability. And that's where, a program like Green Bikes comes in. And I think that's a really great thing that we have to try and make sure that students have an opportunity to practice sustainability and to be environmentally conscious, while also just acknowledging the basic fact that not everybody has a car. Not everybody can have a car. Not everybody has parking for a car. There's just so many factors that go into that. And so the ability to have a bike on campus is one that I think is crucial for a lot of people. And to see this sort of encroachment on it is definitely, when I got that email from Campus Safety, I was a little surprised and it's a little alarming. But yeah, it was good. Parker did a good job with that piece, and I was glad to see that we were able to get kind of some more info from Chris Buckley from Campus Safety, but also get a perspective from a student who rides a bike on campus and get the perspective of how do people who own bikes feel now. And I think that we are probably likely to see a lot more people making sure to lock these things up and just practice a lot more security, which is good. It never hurts to have more security of things that are sitting out in the open, basically. But it is a shame that security is such a necessity by virtue of these thefts that have been occurring. And our top story from our region and state section this week was a story from the Keene Sentinel about how the Keene City Council recently voted to change some of the language in the provisions around city council meetings to try and make those meetings more inclusive for people who might not be able to stand while they speak and address the council. So I don't remember what the exact, language to the letter was, but effectively the rules around these meetings previously said that whoever is speaking and addressing the council with concerns or questions or whatever it may be, to have kind of that relationship between the citizen and the governing body would rise and speak. And so that has now been amended to instead be, rise if they are able.
Yeah, I think it's hard to believe that something like that was still on the books, but I think there's probably a few different laws, here in across the country, which are sort of more of those, you know, I would consider arcane sort of rules of, I guess, decorum. But I think it's good that they, you know, came to grips with the reality that some people can't stand when when they got to speak, and for those who can stand when they speak, maybe it's something that they didn't know about or something that they wouldn't think about. But for those that this affected, I imagine that it was definitely top of their mind. So it's a good move by them, I think. And if there's any other sort of policies or things in regards to meetings that might be need to be looked at in terms of those rules, then I think it'd be good to examine if there's anything else that's sort of standing in the way of making sure that these meetings are, you know, as accessible as possible, you know, in a governing body. It's something that you definitely want to see.
At face value, it seems almost strange. It seems like a no-brainer. Like, if somebody is trying to, you know, speak to you at a council meeting and they're in a wheelchair, probably in that wheelchair for a reason. I find it strange, although I get why they had to change it, and I think it is a good thing.
Yeah, I believe, according to this, I believe the council voted unanimously. Yes. So the city council voted unanimously for this change. So I think that speaks to the fact that the council on this issue has their heads in the right place. You know, I do think this is probably one of those things where it's just been on the books forever and nobody has bothered to take a look at it until now. But so, yeah, it's nice that they took the time to address that and try to make a change that will better serve the people who want to come in and address them at these meetings. All right, I think now we can move on to our top story from student life this week, which is a Holocaust memorial lecture that occurred in the Mabel Brown Room in the Student Center recently. This was a lecture that focused on the forensics, sort of an archaeological angle on the Treblinka and Tronicky sites from the Holocaust, and trying to use those methods, those approaches to unearth more information about those sites to better and further our understanding of them in a historical context.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing for Keene State to be sort of, you know, have the distinction of having, you know, the undergraduate program of, you know, Holocaust and Genocide Studies, and having the Cohen Center as a resource. It's a pretty nice building, and, you know, they have the ability to bring in scholars from across the country and globally to have these opportunities of more academic focused and more, you know, thoughtful conversations and deep dives into some of these atrocities, and, you know, specifically the Holocaust. It's good to have, you know, a mix of events on campus. You know, some of them are going to be more, you know, event oriented and put on by student organizations. Some are going to be more lecture based. Some are going to be, you know, bringing in people from outside. But I think it's important to for students to show some support for events like this, and show that, you know, we want to be able to have people come to campus and, you know, have these sort of talks. I think it's a good.
Yeah, agreed. And it also gives Keene State the ability to focus on its uniqueness. The Cohen Center, and now the Cohen Institute, is it was the first dedicated Holocaust program when they started it in 1980.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for Keene State to prove itself a little bit of a leader in this field, and make sure that students here are able to pursue these topics and get a full understanding of these topics in a way that, you know, other places they might not get that. So I definitely think that I'm in agreement on the fact that events like this are demonstrative of that leadership and that dedication to pursuing knowledge on these topics.
And like Tim touched on with the new Cohen Institute coming in the pipeline. I just did an article about that the other week and had the pleasure of speaking with Jan Cohen, who was part of the husband and wife duo who's kind of made this possible, the Cohen Center and now the Cohen Institute, which is going to bring more opportunities for students and community members alike to do more scholarly work, do more original research, do some more travel, and have more events like these. So it's good to see that funding keeps coming and be able to maintain and expand sort of the opportunities within that section of campus is good to see.
Yeah, and it's important work as well. I mean, the Holocaust is our conscience is it's the big one we think of. That comes to our mind first. But genocide as a whole is not a new issue. It is not an issue that's going away. It's something that we should really study to understand.
And now we can get into our top story from our arts and entertainment section this week. Recently, the film department hosted a guest speaker from Florentine Films to host a workshop focusing on pre-production, film pre-production. And this is actually one of two workshops that they'll be doing with Florentine. They're going to have another guest speaker come in and do one about post-production. So kind of covering a range of topics concerning production there. Tim, this is your article.
Yeah. The Drennan Theater and the Film Studies Department had Collie Powell come. She's a producer for Florentine Films. She talked about the importance of pre-production, about getting yourself organized, getting your ducks in a row, making sure you have a solid plan, and just how to execute it. The organization is key to getting whatever your vision is to function.
Yeah, it seems like this would be something that'd be pretty helpful to those who are students in the film studies department and hope to go into the field and make their own films and sort of get the perspective of what that's actually like, not just in the filming aspect, but pre and post, what to expect from that. But I just wanted to ask, what'd you think about dipping your toes into some reporting, being originally the opinions guy?
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. It was fun. I enjoyed asking questions. It was good to talk with students. The students seemed very excited about the speaker. Yeah.
And I think you've done a couple of A&E articles now. You did the WKNH little check-in article that we ran, and now this. So again, it's been cool to kind of see you jump around and try some different things. As far as the film workshop goes, the film department's kind of been on a hot streak a little bit in terms of the guests they've been bringing in. They had Ken Burns come in and speak, which obviously he's
right.
A super well-known and influential filmmaker. And they even had the director of The Lighthouse come in on a Zoom call. And now this, I feel like every other day I hear about some other, cool thing that the film department has put together. So it's been nice to see them give those opportunities to their students to meet people who are working in the field and really engage with them and try to, pick their brain, learn what they can, and get that insight, early on while they're still pursuing their degree. And now our top story for sports this week was the annual Clarence DeMar Marathon, which ran through Keene and came and ended right at the Arch right on campus.
Yeah, I don't think some people realize that the Clarence DeMar Marathon, Clarence DeMar himself has a special connection to Keene State in that he founded the track and field team, something that I made as part of a lead in the deep dive story I did with the Equinox alumni, Tim Bruns. And, we talked about the school not having a dedicated track facility and sort of the challenges that come with that. So that was something where I first learned about that connection more deeply. But he was also a professor here and went to the Olympics, all-time Boston Marathon winner. So I think the Clarence DeMar Marathon's probably the biggest athletic event or athletic adjacent event that happens in the region in terms of bringing folks here to all do it. There's the half marathon and then the full, but it's definitely a huge event, and you could see them making preparations for it for a week or two now at least. And there was some folks on, I believe, the track team who were also helping during in the race path and making sure everybody's good. Those who are running. So it's a cool thing to see, maintain that tradition and Keene State connection there.
I remember walking down Appian Way the day of the marathon and seeing, a whole section of it like blocked off and all this to do and people, meeting in the street and cheering and everything. So like there definitely is, it's a huge event. I also want to give a shout out to our staff writer, Haley Doda, who wrote that article and did a really good job with getting some quality interviews, including with some of the runners of the marathon. So that was really cool to see and be able to get the perspective of people actually taking part in, this huge kind of regional event and see, what brings them here, how do they feel, what maybe the significance of the marathon is to them. So yeah, shout out there. And with that, I think we're ready to wrap up the very first episode of Noxcast. Thank you very much for watching our little news recap. We're very thankful to the composer of the music for Noxcast, which is recent Equinox alum Zach Keenan. And we're also very grateful to the designer of the graphic for Noxcast, which is Equinox staffer Elijah Fisher. So big thanks to both of them for allowing us to use their art for our little podcast. We hope to see you again on Noxcast. Until then, I've been your host, Charlotte King.
I've been Nathan Hope, and thanks to our guest, Timothy Fitzpatrick, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.